Hey baddies, I'm reading 13 books in November, and today I'm gonna ramble about them. So to give you a little brief overview, apparently one I have to read specifically on November 9th. And then another one, I'm guessing that I'm going to learn to lock every door. But don't worry, because good girls don't die. I think I'm a good girl.
You serious?
Yes, I'm very serious. Let's talk about the books on my November TBR. First up is my Patreon book club pick of the month, and that is Fairy Tale by Stephen King. I don't know why I didn't take out that sticker yet, but we're gonna just pretend that it's not there, okay? Okay. Yes, this is written by Stephen King. You see? Written by Stephen King. Apparently, he writes more than just horror. He also writes stories about a 17-year-old boy named Charlie.
Good morning, angels.
Good morning, Charlie.
Who inherits a key to a parallel world where good and evil are at war. And I know, bestie, you might be thinking, but what that has to do with me, right? Well, let me tell you this. It has everything to do with us because the stakes are like super high, and it's going to be either our world that's going to get destroyed or theirs. And to tell you the truth, I don't want our world to get destroyed. Like, I am actually in this world, so I think I'd rather it be theirs. There's a lot at stake here, and I really want to see who wins.
Oh, but you want to really fight.
I also have a book that has a pretty interesting cover. It kind of like reminds me of a work of art, and that book is The Firekeeper's Daughter by Angeline Bowley. You can see what I mean. And again with the sticker, what is wrong with me? I usually take those stickers out like right away. Okay, that's enough with the cover. Because we all know who you really here to see. Yes, of course. Did you know that this is a debut by an Indigenous author? Yes, bestie. This was written by an Indigenous author, which is perfect for Indigenous month, which is November. Well, yeah, Indigenous Peoples Month, Heritage, something like that. Editing me will just add, yeah, this right here. So let me ask you this. Have you ever put your dreams on hold to take care of somebody? Well, that's what's going on with Donis Fontaine, who is an 18-year-old who is caring for their daughter? No. Their mother. Yes. Okay, so Donis has a lot on her plate. She is biracial and an unenrolled tribal member. And in case that wasn't enough, she's also a product of some sort of scandal.
I am deeply and utterly offended.
You see, Donis actually witnessed a murder that kind of like forced them to be part of some kind of investigation. So what does she decide to do? Well, I mean, the obvious thing, which is going undercover. Deaths continue to pile up and threats start coming even closer to home, leaving Donis to think how far she's willing to go to protect her community. Ooh, this sounds so good. I love me a good scandal. I can't wait to get to this one. Bestie, I think this is the month of scandals, but this time it takes place in Oxford, and it's the murder of April in The It Girl by Ruth Ware. So Hannah ends up meeting April at Oxford University, and April is like this full of life, vivacious, but sometimes vicious. She's like the ultimate it girl. April ends up introducing Hannah to like her group of friends, you know, like the clique in a sense.
Okay, you should just know that we don't do this a lot, so this is like a really huge deal. We want to invite you to have lunch with us every day for the rest of the week.
But then, bam, April is dead. Let's fast forward to a whole decade later when Hannah ends up getting word that April's killer, John, died in prison. Everything seems fine and dandy, right? Not quite, because Hannah ends up getting information from a young journalist that Neville, whatever his last name is, may have been innocent. And they have, I guess, some kind of proof to back that up. Hannah decides to reconnect with some old friends with this new information. And as she dives like deeper and deeper into April's death, she starts to realize that the friends she thought were actually friends may actually have more secrets than anything else. And one of the secrets includes murder. This sounds amazing, and I cannot wait to get started on this because I'm dying to find out who really killed April. And if you thought that I was done with some thrillers, nope. I also have Lock Every Door by Riley Sager on this TBR. In this one, we're following Jules, who happens to be in quite a pickle. She is broke, obviously without a job, and very desperate for some kind of money. So when she's offered a job at the Bartholomew Hotel or apartment, whatever, why would she refuse? She got an offer to get paid to live in Manhattan's high, prestigious, and mysterious buildings. I mean, that's definitely an offer that I wouldn't even refuse. Show me the money! The only thing is that the Bartholomew does come with like a strict set of rules and is pretty dark and again mysterious. Jules ends up befriending a fellow sitter within the building named Ingrid. So Ingrid takes it upon herself to start spilling the tea about the Bartholomew, but Ingrid eventually ends up going missing. With the disappearance of her friend Ingrid, Jules is beginning to think if she doesn't unmask the killer and expose Bartholomew, then she just might be next on the list and might never leave this place. I can't wait to help Jules expose the Bartholomew and figure out who this killer is and what really happened to Ingrid. So the next book on my list is Family Lore by Elizabeth Acevedo. Okay, bestie, so as you already know, I've read almost every Elizabeth Acevedo book. I read With the Fire on High, and I also read Clap When You Land. When I found out that Elizabeth Acevedo was coming out with a new book, you know your girl ran and added that to my anticipated reads for the year. In Family Lore, we're following a Dominican-American family, and it's told through the perspective of the 6 women within that family. Each of these women actually have like some sort of unique gift. What makes it more interesting is that one of them, I believe, can like see the future or something to that effect. I believe that same one, her name is Flor. She actually decided to organize some sort of living wake for herself. That's kind of weird, but very interesting because I don't think I've ever heard of anyone organizing a wake for themselves, and they're still alive. I'm pretty excited about this one because I'm going to be taken on a journey in their lives, going into like past and present timeline, and for me that's kind of interesting. I just hope it doesn't get confusing along the way. The next book was actually sent to me by the author. I am included in their influencer list, and that book is Shadows of You by Catherine Cowles, something like that. I apologize for that if I pronounced it wrong. So this one is actually book 4 in the Lost and Found series, but for my girlies that are just like me that have not read the other 3 books in the series, you have nothing to worry about.
There be no worries for the rest of your days.
I asked the author if it's okay to even start reading this from this book forward, and they told me yes, it's very much okay. So in this one, we're following Aspen, who happens to be a single mom who's running away from something and looking to make a fresh start somewhere. And what better place to do that in than a small town, right? The last thing she really expected was to meet this fine, grumpy mountain man named Rowan. Aspen starts to feel like her life is finally getting on track, right? Well, that is until her past finally catches up with her and finds her. And he doesn't seem happy, and he doesn't want her happy neither. Matter of fact, he doesn't even want her breathing.
One more time.
Ooh, child, I don't know about you, but this one sounds like it's gonna have me turning the pages. Another book I am so excited to read, and it's actually for a prompt in my fall readathon, which is the disability visibility prompt. That book is A Great Place for a Seizure by Terry Tracy. So in this one, we're following Mishka's family as they decide to flee from the 1973 dictatorship that happened in Chile. They decided to come to the US, where I guess you could say things are better. Well, duh, obviously it's better than dictatorship Chile, right? As Mishka begins to live life in the US, an unexpected seizure happens, which sparks the beginning of her life living with epilepsy. As a person that lives with epilepsy as well, and that had a sudden change at the age of 11, which was when I was fully diagnosed with epilepsy, I am super excited for this one, and I feel like I am going to relate so much to Mishka. I mean, you know, with the epilepsy part, but not really the fleeing part. But yeah. Okay, besties, so I know you've seen this book before on my TBR because it was on my TBR to be read last year. But this year, I'm gonna make sure that I read it. And that book is The Girl Who Drank the Moon by Kelly Barnhill. Yes, this is back. It's back on my list. And so every year, the town of Proctorate, leaves a baby as an offering to this witch that lives in the forest. They do this in hopes that it will keep her from terrorizing the town. What the people don't know is that the witch that lives in the forest, Zan, is actually kind and gentle. Because what she actually does is she takes the abandoned children and takes them to welcoming families while feeding them starlight along the way. But one year, Zan accidentally, feeds a baby Moonlight, filling them up with extraordinary powers and magic, or just magic. Yeah, just magic. What Zan does is she decides to keep baby Luna for herself, which, by the way, Luna means moon in Spanish too. Spanish 101. You learned a new word. Meanwhile, a young man from Proctorate decides he wants to get rid of this witch to free his people. So Luna must decide if she's going to protect the people that's always protected her, even if it means the end of the lovely safe place that she's always known. I was basically holding off to read this one specifically for this month because I don't know, there's just something about it that gives me like fall vibes, especially like November vibes on top of that. So yeah, this one is definitely getting read. Okay, bestie, so we're almost there, but let me talk to you about that book that I mentioned in the beginning. That book is November 9 by Colleen Hoover. This one is another one that I was scheduled to read on November 9th of last year. That didn't happen. Actually, it was on a TBR prior to November 9th, but then I came up with this bright idea that I'm sure many people have to read this on November 9th.
Oh my God! Wow!
In case you don't remember, which I barely do, in this one, Fallon meets Ben, who happens to be an aspiring author. Their untimely attraction kind of leads Fallon to spending her last day in LA with Ben. It ends up being something to the effect of Fallon becoming Ben's inspiration for a novel. Over time, they both decide to still meet up specifically on November 9th. Until one day, Fallon begins to wonder if Ben is actually telling her the truth, or is he fabricating this kind of story that he's concocting for the ultimate plot twist? Which leads to the ultimate question: can Ben's novel be considered a love story if it's ending in heartbreak? There's only one way for me to find out, and that's to finally read this one on November 9th. Another book I'm excited to read that actually, I believe it comes out November 14 is Good Girls Don't Die by Christina Henry. All right, besties. So imagine this. Imagine waking up one day and feeling like your life isn't even yours.
Oh, I'm like the Crypt Keeper. Okay, that's enough.
Or going on like a fun trip and then feeling like something just isn't right. Or how about this? Wanting to be with your daughter, but you can't be with her because you're in a dangerous situation and you don't even know how you got there and why that's happening. 3 women, 3 stories, but only one way out. Listen, this just sounds so good. I just feel like I am going to devour this. It just might mess with my mind a little bit because it kind of sounds that way. The next book that I am so excited to read is Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. Iron Flame is actually book 2 to 4th Wing. By the time I post this video, this book will already be out. It comes out November 7th, which I have been counting down for. So basically, the whole premise of this one is the first year is where a lot of lives were lost, and that's all meant to weed out the weak-willed. And the second year is where the real training begins. And listen, bestie. That first book was a lot in itself. If that was not the training, I can't even imagine what's gonna happen in Iron Flame. And I am super excited. I can't wait. And I am going to read this with my Patreon again. We are super excited because we read 4th Wing together. So yes. Okay, so the next book I am reading is There Be Thorns by V.C. Andrews. This one is actually the 3rd book in the Dollenganger series, which is like, you know, what most people know as the Flowers in the Attic series. So Kathy and Christopher thought that they could live this happy life together with her sons, Bart and Jory, I think his name is.
And wrong.
They sure was wrong, because that is until this old lady moves in next door and begins to lure Bart with cookies and ice cream. I mean, what kid is gonna turn that down? I wouldn't even turn that down.
Okay. Nom, 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 oh, nom, 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 nom.
And what makes things more weird about this is that she keeps telling him to call her grandma. Kathy starts to question if maybe the horrors from her past has finally caught up to her. Overall, I'm still pretty excited about reading this and continuing on in this series. Another book that's actually part of the series that I'm excited to read is Things We Hide from the Light by Lucy Score. And in this one, we are actually following Nash, who happens to be not only a chief officer in the small town of Knockemout, because this is part of the Knockemout series, but he was always like this charismatic guy who always smiled and talked to everybody. But now Nash has changed after the events that took place in the first book, and he's not gonna tell anybody that he's actually struggling. Struggling. There we go. Yes, that word. However, his new neighbor, Lena, actually can see right through him. The thing is that Lena also has some secrets of her own. Yep, Lena's actually not the relationship type of girly. So she's basically just there to get what it is that she needs. Then she's planning on not sticking around. That doesn't apply to Nash because he plans on not letting Lena go, even if it means facing the same dangers that almost killed him. So after reading Things, what is it called? Oh, Things We Never Got Over, which I absolutely love, I'm very much excited to find out about Nash and Lena and how their story goes. Hopefully, Nash and Lena can get there happily ever after. Well, bestie, there's only one more thing left to do. We got to count down to November 9th.